You've heard him referred to as the voice of the TCU Horned Frogs. Please welcome Brian Estridge.
Thank you, Ryan. The great thing about being here with Ryan is that, he mentioned my son. Ryan's going to have 4 boys go to the Air Force Academy. Am I right about that? 4 boys go to the Air Force Academy. Somebody's doing something right, aren't they? So tell your wife congratulations, because apparently she's done an amazing job. You know, I mean, it's going to be a fun night here. Thanks for everybody coming, because I think this is special. By the way, 2 of those boys are sitting right there. One of them's going to play tight end, and one's going to wrestle. How about that at the Air Force Academy? Yes. This is going to be a fun night. This is going to be just a conversation that I thought we would have with 2 very special people who are members here at the Mark. And you know, one of the things that Ryan told me early on when I asked him, I said, "Hey, what do you want to get out of tonight?" And he said, "I want to answer the question." And I said, "Well, what's the question?" He said, "Well, one of the questions that I hear a lot, or statements, if you will, at times, is, 'Did you know?'" And he says, here at the Mark, I get that all the time. "Hey, did you know that Brent's a member? Hey, did you know that Brent played in 3 Super Bowls? Hey, did you know what Lori accomplished at Vanderbilt in track?" And there's those stories throughout the Mark and the membership here that we want to start telling and sharing with folks. But we also want to kind of interconnect everybody. And I think one of the things that we want to come out of today is how physical fitness and teamwork and camaraderie and working together all add to, let's just be honest, a better life. So I think that's what we want to do today. So if you would, please welcome Lori Hoagland. Come on up, Lori. She's going to join us first. We're going to put her right here, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time with her first, and then we're going to dive right in. Ryan, I've got an extra microphone, but I'm going to put it right there. And so we're going to bring it, Brent, you get to relax just for a second in the bullpen, okay, man? But not long. Because then we're going to have a conversation as a group. Lori, you grew up in Cincinnati.
Correct.
I want to make sure I got that right. Indian Hills High School?
Indian Hill.
How about that? Indian Hill, that's right, don't put an S on it, right?
Put
It's
an S on
Walnut Hills, right?
Right.
But Indian Hill.
Right.
I got it all in Cincinnati, all right. Then you end up at Vanderbilt.
Correct.
But you were a 4 or 5 or 6 sport athlete in high school, weren't you?
Right.
How many was it?
Field hockey, volleyball, basketball, swimming, track and field, and softball.
Okay, so a 6 sport athlete in high school. You end up going to Vanderbilt, but you didn't go as an athlete necessarily, right?
Right. I went for the academics. I wanted to major in Spanish, and it turns out I majored in Spanish and business. But then when I went there, I thought, oh, hey, I'd like to still continue playing a sport. But they didn't have women's sports to speak of. And so a friend of mine from Cincinnati, coincidentally, her mother and my mother ran track in high school at the same high school. So she said, come on, let's go talk to the men's team. And the men's coach was just wonderful and said, yeah, you can work out with us. So first year, Linda joined me, and then she went away, and I stayed with the men, and they were just excellent. I mean, they were very respectful, and it encouraged me. It always made me work harder because I knew I couldn't beat them, and maybe I pushed them along because they didn't want me to beat them.
But they welcomed you.
They welcomed me.
And from that, there was an establishment of a women's program, right, at Vanderbilt.
Right.
And tell me how that came out of that.
Well, can I tell you a little bit about the men's team?
Yes,
We'll leave this to Tom.
yeah. You're going to slide this over to me?
Yeah. I have some memorabilia.
Yes, she brought show and tell. I hope Brent did too.
The men's team. I have 2 items in here. The first thing is they issued me a men's sweatsuit.
Look at that. I like that logo, the old Vanderbilt logo. That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
Bring that back.
Here are the pants. I was number 53.
Right. Starting right guard.
Here's a hose. Why did I bring this hose? I brought this hose. This is how we got to drink water.
Right.
We stopped in people's yards in Nashville and drank water out of hoses. Why would we do that? We didn't have plastic water bottles. So that's my souvenir box from when I ran with the men, and I also learned how to spit when I ran with that. Because as a girl, you know, that's not very ladylike. But then I thought, hey, they're spitting, I'm going to spit too.
Spitting's cool. It can be cool. Yeah. You meet with the men's coach at one point, who encouraged you to go meet with. And Vanderbilt does it a little different. They don't always call him the athletic director. They tend to call him like the vice chancellor or something
Yes.
like that, right? And so you go and meet with the vice chancellor who oversaw athletics.
Yes, I met with Vice Chancellor Rod Roy Purdy, which I started to think about. Wait a minute, the quarterback for the 49ers is Brock Purdy.
Yes.
I wonder if they're related. But anyway, I met with the Vice Chancellor. He asked me to create a constitution, and I did that. I wrote it down on paper, took it back to him, and then it got approved by the Vanderbilt administration. And when I went back to him, he said, "You have a $1,000 budget." That doesn't sound like a lot of money, does it? But in today's dollars, that's what $1,000 would be today.
Oh wow, so that's a big budget. What do you do with $1,000?
Well, I bought T-shirts for all of us. These are our T-shirts.
Look at that.
And sweatsuits. And then we had travel money. We went to 5 cross-country meets in the fall and 5 track meets in the spring.
Wow. And now today, the track program for women at Vanderbilt, thanks to Title IX and other things, is part of the athletic program, fully funded and highly successful, right?
Right.
Yes, I love that. We're going to spend some time on your journey a little bit later on. I do want to bring up Brent Jones. Brent, come on up. 3-time Super Bowl champion, Brent Jones. How about this? Come on up, buddy. Good to see you. Yes. Got that microphone there. Here's a little fun fact about Brent that you guys may know or may not know. We all know the 11 years with the 49ers. We all know the 3 Super Bowls, right? He actually spent 12 years. We counted as 12, right?
My pension counts as 12.
And that's important, the NFL pension. You're drafted out of Santa Clara by the Steelers.
Yes.
And what happened?
You know, first of all, being drafted from a Division II school was very rare back then, and I never saw it coming. Chuck Noll was out at our school looking at film, and I thought, no, I'm not a Steelers type of guy. And back on draft day, ESPN would have the draft for 3 rounds, and then it went off the air. And it went off the air, and I hadn't gotten a call, and about an hour later, the phone finally rang, and it was Art Rooney saying, "Welcome to the Steelers. We think you're our tight end of the future." And 2 weeks later, a drunk driver hit my fiance and I. My fiance is here now. She's my wife now. So, but we got in a pretty bad car accident. She broke her jaw and dislocated her shoulder. I had a herniated disc in my neck, and it was a tough way to start a football career.
And so that year at Pittsburgh was cut short, right? You didn't finish the season with the Steelers.
No, I was there for about 5-6 months.
Right. And then 49ers pick you up. And much like the Steelers, they saw something in you as a tight end of the future because you were one of the first pass-catching tight ends. A guy could split out, a guy could run, things like that, right? Am I safe in saying
Well,
that?
not one of the first, but it was early on.
But it was early on. I mean, we're going to give you credit for that.
Yeah, you know what, Brian, it was a lot of fun. It's weird to think back because, you know, just being a kid and growing up in the Bay Area, the 49ers finally won a Super Bowl in 1981. For most of my young life, the 49ers were horrible. I was a big Dallas Cowboy fan. I loved the Cowboys. I loved Roger Staubach and Drew Pearson and all those guys. And so it was weird when Dwight Clark caught that catch against the Cowboys. I was despondent. I wouldn't talk for a week. Yes, and 5 years later, I was standing in the huddle next to him. It was really strange.
About that, yeah, and you quickly said, you know what, I'm a Joe Montana
Yes.
and Steve Young fan. Now, let's make it happen. You know, one of the things about Brent that I want to emphasize too is not only was he a great player, has 3 Super Bowl rings, wearing one of them. Did you bring the other 2?
I actually, you know, I didn't want Lori to bring all the show and tell.
Right.
So
Good here.
I did bring them so
Okay,
people
good.
could get a chance to.
All right, so
to
maybe
see.
when today's over with, you get a chance to see that. But you won the Bart Star Award. And the Bart Starr Award is not only for success on the field, but how you carry yourself off of it. What did that mean to you when you got that award?
You know, it was such a special time. My career was wrapping up. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. The phone rang, toward the end of the season, and the guy on the other end said it was Bart Starr, and I thought it was one of my friends messing around with me. And I said, "You're not Bart Starr," and he said, "No, I am Bart Starr," and it meant so much. He was one of the first quarterbacks that I grew up remembering as maybe a 6 or 7 year old. He was a man that carried himself with unbelievable dignity, great character, a leader. Had great stories about Vince Lombardi. And to win that award from your peers as you were retiring, it meant an awful lot. So it was very special. I had the opportunity to host. They have a breakfast every year at the Super Bowl, and for probably 13 or 14 years, I got to host it, and my wife and I became, pretty close with Bart and his wife, and it's pretty special to see him and how he treats people, and we certainly, he passed a few years ago, and we certainly miss him, but the award lives on. It's a special award.
Yeah, congratulations on getting that, because it'll always be with you. Before we go and get into our conversation that includes all of us here, I do need to point out, this is not a fashion faux pas. I don't normally wear footies with slacks because Brent is here. These are my Detroit Lions footies. A little disappointed in last weekend, but that's okay. There's still, you don't see those.
I have to say, there are a lot of people that love the Lions.
Yeah.
Even my wife Dana said, if the 49ers lose, at least I like Dan Campbell. She watched Hard Knocks.
Hard not to like him, isn't it?
It is hard not to.
I want to start with this, Laurie, because I want to see where your love for physical activity, for working out, and for being part of a team, where did it start? Was that driven by your folks, or where did it begin?
Well, my mother was an athlete in high school, but my father was a tremendous athlete. He played football, basketball, and baseball, and he pole vaulted. And that takes a lot of core to do that. So yeah, they instilled that in us. My brother played sports too.
Now back then, I say that it's decades ago, or centuries ago. It's not. Yeah, but let's talk about women's athletics back then. Of your peers, were most of your peers playing sports then?
Sure. Our high school, I think, was pretty special.
Yeah.
We had all those teams, and I don't think some high schools at that time did, but we did. We had all those sports to play, and they worked the calendar so that you could play all the different sports. You didn't have to pick one, which I think we've kind of lost that today.
Yeah, I don't like that. You're right. You do have to specialize, it almost seems like, at an early age.
Yes.
And you miss out, because when you do play multiple sports like that, you're working different muscle groups.
Correct.
And one enhances the other, doesn't it?
Correct.
Yeah.
In fact, some of my water aerobics peeps are here.
That's right. Yes.
Thank you for coming.
Able to turn out for this.
Yeah.
Brent, what about you? Your dad was a quarterback, right? Back in the day. Drafted by the Raiders. Played at San Jose?
San Jose
San
State.
Jose, yeah. And did he coach?
He did. He's still coaching me.
Oh, really? Yeah. Is that what drove you? I mean, is that where it started?
Brian, it's funny because back then you didn't think about walking outside and throwing the ball around during football season, or shooting hoops whenever you felt like it, or playing catch with your glove. And we rotate as a kid growing up. You just, whatever season it was, that's what you were playing. There was no cable TV, there was no Game Boys, there was no video games. You basically invented your fun, and for us that was just playing with the ball. And so my dad was a big part of that. When he was around, he always said, "Hey, you ever want to go out and throw the ball around, that takes priority over whatever else I'm doing." Yeah. I think he just didn't want to work in the yard.
I don't blame him. But you were a baseballer at heart, right? At the beginning?
I actually thought I was more of a baseball player. That was my dream, to play professional baseball. And even in high school, and this is really a good lesson for the grandparents, the parents, and the kids out there, I was not a starter on my high school football team. And so your die is not cast at age 13, 14, 15 for the rest of your life. It just isn't. I grew later. I went to Santa Clara on a baseball and ironically a football scholarship. My high school coach, although he wouldn't start me, called the coach at Santa Clara and said, this guy's got some potential, which I never thought I'd play again, but got a football, baseball, went to Santa Clara, played both. My freshman year, I actually redshirted in football. So now I'd probably played 3 years of football. I'd hardly gotten in the game. It was tons of hard work. It was physically taxing, mentally taxing. And I thought, I'm going to just play one more year of football and then play baseball. And then my sophomore year in football, I started, caught touchdowns, had a lot of fun, dislocated my shoulder the last game of the season, had to have surgery. And the baseball coach got mad I was playing football and took my scholarship away. And so it sounds funny now, but at the time, that was my whole world. And I was going to transfer. And our football coach, who was our athletic director, came in and said, hey, we're going to pick up your scholarship. Football's going to pay for all your school. We'd like you to stay here. We think you're a good wide receiver, but we think if we move you to tight end, maybe you could have a chance someday to play in the NFL. And I fell for that line, and that was my focus the rest of my time there.
What great advice at the time, right? I mean, now you look back on it, you go, the guy was a genius.
It was great advice. Actually, but even better than that, like 2 months later, there was a new co-ed on campus, and had I left, I would have never met her. So,
Yes. How about that? When you think about being a college athlete, oftentimes, and especially today, there's a lot going on in the world as far as NIL and transfer portal and things of that nature. But being a student athlete is a lot of work. Was there ever a point at Vanderbilt where you thought to yourself, this is just too much? The academic rigor was hard. I'm having to, I'm building this track program essentially at Vanderbilt. Did you ever think, it's just too much, I can't do this?
Oh, no. I just really loved it.
Yeah.
It's just something I love doing.
Yeah, and you stuck with it, and because of that, obviously you get the reward of seeing the program built. But was there a point where you realized athletics or physical activity like this is going to always be a part of my life?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I've always loved running.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice escape. You go out of the house, you go running, and it's your time to be free and to think. And, it has its physical rewards, keeping in shape, staying healthy.
Did you step away from running at all after college?
I would say the first part of our marriage, we were busy with all our children, so I did run, but not focused. And then when I turned 48, I thought, hey, I think I'm going to start running some races. And so I did run local 5K races in Houston, and since that point in time, I did some 10Ks and some 1 miles. I've run 75 races. So,
And then started at 48.
48, yeah.
Yeah, that goes back to what you said, that your die's not cast early, at any time, right?
there's always more you can accomplish.
Yeah,
it really is.
exactly.
And Brian, while we're on the subject, I just want to acknowledge Lori, just for being a pioneer back in the days of early women's sports. And I know there's other ladies here in the audience. It's so important, and I realized it very early on, having 2 young daughters, and they've been the benefactors of the early movement, the ones that pushed against challenging funding environments and people saying, hey, why do we need women's sports? Because most of my daughters were great soccer players. They both ended up playing in college, and sports has been a huge benefit in their lives as young women, and you've seen that, and it's so important, and it's remarkable how far women's sports has come over the years.
Well, and one of those won a couple of national championships in North Carolina, right?
Yes.
We've got a Tar Heel in the house. I met her earlier. Where is she? We got a couple of Tar Heels, yes, that are here. So they were fired up about that. Did you ever view yourself as a pioneer? Did you ever think about it that way?
Not really. I mean, it's what I wanted, and it just kind of naturally evolved.
Yeah. So the program starts, and I don't mean to jump back, but I left one thing out. So you get the program started. You ended up graduating. You were the coach and a member of the team at first, right?
Right. I would put myself in the races that I couldn't fill with other teammates.
Right.
So my first love was the half mile or the 880. Now they do the 800 meters, but I would put myself even in the 220 just because I needed a body in that race.
And so once you graduated, they decided they were going to hire a full-time coach. Did you ever think about doing that?
I'd already gotten a job in the oil business in Houston.
There you go. Wise move. Yeah, so you knew.
Yeah, I was a month late.
Yeah, exactly. So have there been opportunities for you to go back to Vanderbilt, and do you continue to follow that program and the success that they have had?
Oh, definitely. I run the Facebook group for the Vanderbilt women's alumni for track and field and cross country, and we have reunions regularly. It's interesting, in the recent years they've taken more effort to acknowledge that we were there doing things, and post being there they said I'm a letter winner athlete. So
Love that. I know you got some more show and tell I want to get into in a second on how technology has changed, but we're kind of talking about how sports have changed, and I wonder for you, the way football is today, do you like where the game is, Brent? Do you like where we're headed? Let's start with the college side.
So we could probably do an hour program, Brian, on what I think about that. But I think eventually too many dollars into any sport start to spoil the beauty, the rawness, just the love side of things. I think there's probably been some good things in college football over the years. I think the portal initially started off as a good idea, but I think it's become almost too relied upon. There's almost too much going on. They've got to put some parameters around it. And then the NIL money, initially I thought, wow, that's interesting. And now it's the sole driver of players, of their commitments, being one team, jumping to another team. And I think what you miss there is the dynamic of team that becomes so important, especially as you go out into the real world and understanding what it's like to be part of a team, whether it's at business, in your family, in the community. You lose those growing opportunities, those aspects, when you're just worried about, hey, who's going to pay me the most? I'm going to jump to this team, I'm going to jump to this team. And you never really solidify those relationships that become so important later in life.
You know, that's one of the things we talk about, that the athletes today, where will they go for homecoming? You know, because it's a big deal. You think about it. You think about Lauren running the Facebook page for the Vanderbilt alumni. There won't be anyone to do that, because where's your affinity? Where's your loyalty? You know, where's your heart? No, it was all about the pocketbook. It becomes strictly transactional. It's not relational anymore.
You know, the camaraderie is what really carries you, and that bond is built in those, I think, whether it's the high school years or those college years, being part of a professional team, those things last. And I can tell you, being older, those things still matter. It's a support, it's an encouragement group. It's spectacular, I think, as you get older, and I don't know that you necessarily realize that at age 19, 20, 21.
It's a great segue into our next topic about teamwork and the importance of not only being a part of a team, which you were, even though track can be looked upon or cross country can be looked upon as an individual sport, it's still, you're working out with a team. It's very much important. But you think about today and what we're all doing as adults here at the Mark and working out and trying to continue to improve our health. Your water aerobics group is here. It's still kind of a team, isn't it? Is it not? And that's inspirational for everyone, isn't it?
Yes, and I think we tend to be people of habit, coming at the same time, and then you start to see, well, where's Tom? Or he's not here today, and you start saying, and yeah, it is like a team.
And when you were coming up and when you were at Vanderbilt, give me some sense as to the importance of that team and those relationships that continue today.
we were just 15 women that wanted to work out together. So yes, there was definitely close bonds, and I'm still friends with a good many of them today. It just means a lot.
And did you guys did you push each other to be better? I mean, was there a driving force behind that?
Oh, naturally, yeah.
Because I think, Brent, I know that how football can be, and how that locker room can be, and the camaraderie in that, and how everyone's, even in off-season workouts in the weight room, you're pushing each other. And there's competition, and the NFL can be a business, and everybody's trying to keep a roster spot. But give us some sense of relationships that continued after football because of those days in the locker room.
Yeah, you know, I really hate to liken it to the military, because military is the ultimate sacrificing for the country, putting your life on the line. And you see the bond and the connection that those men have and women all these years later. It's definitely a step down, but football is physically demanding, it's mentally demanding. It is intense, especially when it's your livelihood and you've got a child on the way, and you've got the regular stresses of life. I think people don't necessarily see that. Maybe that's changed a little bit in the last few years, but it's still real. Those are still real guys with real life problems. And so to be able to bond around something that's physically demanding, mentally demanding, high pressure all the time, the only ones that can really appreciate what you're going through are those group of guys and your family members. And so it really, it's basically bonded by fire is kind of the way that you look at it. And first of all, men aren't great necessarily at keeping in touch. Professional athletes that are men are 10 times worse than just an average guy. And so trying to keep in touch with guys can be a challenge, but there's some that you definitely keep in touch with, and then at least once or twice a year we'll get together and see each other, and it's like no time has passed. You have all the old nicknames, we're making fun of each other, we're laughing. You can't be too sensitive. That's what I realized early on. You better not be sensitive, because if you are, that means you're going to get exponential amount of jokes coming at you. And so all these years later, it's great. I mean, I still talk to a lot of guys. Ironically, even guys around the league that I played against. I ran into Michael Irvin 4 or 5 months ago, and he treated me like I was his long lost brother. I mean, it was unbelievable. It's just, you have a connection with guys. John Giesick, who was a lineman for the Cowboys, we could sit and talk for hours just about some of the same personalities and the same things that we were going through. And I think, as you get older, people always think, gosh, it's great. The Super Bowls, I have to say, winning and being a champion, there's nothing better than that. But you look at all the things, and it's not the money, it's not the certain plays. All these years later, it's really the relationships that you build.
That's the thing, we didn't have any device to tell us how far we were running.
You wrote a map? Really?
I'm getting to that. We would just go out and run. When I ran with the men, I trusted the men's coach to tell us what the distance was. So we kind of replicated what the men did. But speaking of no GPS, here is a map of Tennessee and Kentucky. And I drove us to meets in Atlanta, Knoxville, Louisville, Memphis. We used a map. And we drove in the dark at night. Let's see, no internet or cell phones.
How about the timing? How did they time you? That was a sundial. What did they time?
If you got here early enough, you would have seen that this is how they did the timing. You ran, you crossed the finish line, and then they'd hand you a card.
That was your place that you finished?
That would be your place. We did not have chip timing, we didn't have bibs. I went to the SEC meeting, I think it was 2016, they wear 2 chips when they run now. And they want to know their results immediately. And they'll find out because they have chip timing. Here is the handwritten results from the October 30th, 1976 cross-country meet that was held at Knoxville, UT, University of Tennessee. They are handwritten, and I received them in the mail a week later after the meet. And if you're really old, you'll remember mimeograph.
Oh, yes.
Remember that? And you would smell
Yes.
the aroma from your teacher might bring your test paper in. This is the Memphis State Women's Invitational Track and Field Meet Guide for 1976, mimeographed. And for fun, when you're running these days, you probably listen to music. We had AM/FM transistor radios with batteries. Could you imagine yourself running with one of these?
So times have changed a little.
A little bit.
Yes.
And then from an older runner, I definitely would scope out the competition to see what the other runners were running, and I'd go back and look at, okay, last year's meet results were this. Let's see, what time do I kind of have to hope to run this fast to see if I can place.
Yeah, today you would just look on the internet, you would have,
Right.
yeah, you could go back and see all their times,
Yeah,
right?
so the technology, a big difference.
Yeah. Brett, what were the cleats that you wore in college?
Gosh, you put me on the spot. I actually think I wore Nikes.
Really? Back then,
Yeah.
they were around.
They were still there.
Yeah.
I was thinking, Lori's all of the great stuff she had, everyone's laughing. I should have brought my leather helmet.
Yeah, that would, yeah. that would have been, it is amazing how the technology in football has changed from a safety perspective. And you think of all that they do, you know, with the concussion protocol and things of that nature now. They've made great advancements every time.
They really have, and they've made the game so much safer. And I think it's great for parents out there, you know, thinking about, because I get the question all the time, you know, what age would you let your son play football, your grandson? I think that they've done a very good job across the board of teaching correct tackling, of not leading with the helmet. The helmets now are so much better, so much more protective, and I think people are aware of the concussion scenario. Unfortunately, I had 8 when I played in the NFL, and so if I stop talking and say, "What's your name again?"
Yeah, right.
You'll know.
8. Wow.
Yeah. No, sometimes we make light of it, but I do have some friends that are struggling, and I've had some friends that have taken their lives.
Right.
And it starts to get brutal when you think about the impact. I don't know that you can blame it all on football and concussions, but I think you certainly need to be aware of it as certainly as a parent. But I think for the most part, they've made the game much safer than it was 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, you think about, you mentioned sports nutrition, and I know one of the things that Ryan's really big on here at the Mark is safety and making sure that everyone has, you know, advice, if nothing else, if they need it. But you think about it from a sports training perspective, and what student athletes have today, as opposed to, you probably never went to the university didn't have a masseuse.
Oh, no, but they have one now.
Yeah, they do now, yes, right. And you think of all the equipment and the, what's the word I'm looking for, the recovery, from a recovery standpoint. All the emphasis on that has made great strides.
Yeah. Well, and they are running faster.
Yeah.
You know, when I was in college, I ran the equivalent of the 800, they called it the half mile back then. I ran it in 2:37. And the Vanderbilt runners today are running around 2:07 and 2:05. So they're running 30 seconds faster than what I did back then.
You ever think, though, with all the technology available today, all the training, all the specialists, could you do it today?
I would love to do it today.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm 69 now.
Well, right. Britt, would you play in the NFL today?
Oh, I would love it.
Yeah, but do you think with the way the game has changed, with the athletes, with the training, would you still have been given the opportunity?
You know, it's a good question. I think so,
Yeah.
right? You know, the one thing that I do know is they've made the game less of a focus on the knockout blows. It was a big deal back when I played. So going across the middle used to be, you know, you had to take your life in your hands, literally. And you used to remember on ESPN, they'd have the biggest knockout shots of the week, and everybody would applaud those. You just don't see that nowadays. It's not part of it. So that, to me, would equal freedom from when I play. So it would be fun to run around and not have anybody able to lay you out.
I want to shift gears with both of you real quickly and talk about how sports and teamwork and physical activity and staying physically fit enhanced your life as far as business is concerned. Because we talked about that camaraderie and the connections that you made. You've been highly successful in business. Did sports play a role in that?
You know, ironically, it did. Before I retired, I was smart enough as a football player, and this isn't all guys, but I figured my career's going to end one of these days. And so most guys never think about it or talk about it. But I turned 32 and I said, who would I like to meet? We had just won Super Bowl in '94, and I thought, so one of these days I'm going to need to be out in the business world. And so I studied, I went to this one office of a venture capital firm, and I got tossed out probably 3 different times over the course of 8 or 9 months. I'd wear my Super Bowl ring, hope somebody would recognize me and want to talk to one of the managers, and they'd say, no, we don't need any, we don't take any meetings just off the street. And so eventually I got a meeting with one of these guys, and instead of going to their offices, I had him come down to the 49ers office, and I drugged Steve Young into the meeting. He was my roommate, and I said, okay, you're here to be quiet and be nice. You don't try to use any of your lawyer talk, because we want to get into a connection with these guys and figure it out. And so ironically, they kind of came, the firm was a venture capital firm called Sequoia Capital. They were the first money in Apple, Cisco, Google, you name it. And so these guys kind of came away from the meeting saying, it's nice, you guys are football players, that's great. What can you do for us? And we didn't really, we can get you tickets. I can get Jerry Rice to sign his jersey. But it was really one of my first forays into business, like, okay, what are you going to bring to the table? So we left the meeting. I had 2 or 3 other guys that were there, and they went about not thinking about anything about it. And I sent a care package up with 3 football helmets, some Jerry Rice and Steve Young jerseys, some team signed balls, and I sent it to the guy. And about a week later, he called me. He said, man, I had no idea you guys were such a big deal. He said people were fighting in the aisles over all this stuff. And so he said, hey, we'd love to know what makes you tick. And maybe we can, spend some time together. We'll let you invest in our firm, and we'll take you around during the off season and take you a few meetings. And subsequently, that one gentleman and 1 or 2 other guys along the way helped me start, me and Tommy Vardell, one of our running backs, start our own venture capital fund 5 years later. Wow. So it was just we had no business being in that business, but we were dogged determination, relentlessness, not knowing that we didn't belong. I mean, would you guys want to invest with a couple of football players? Got some great ideas for your portfolio.
That's right. But you got to be in it to win it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we spent a lot of time and learned a whole new business coming out of football, which was really enjoyable, really fun, really challenging intellectually, and really it was all about relationships and starting to build them and starting to ask questions and some of the things that made us tick as football players were there's a lot of correlation between sports and business. And if you see right now, there are a lot of businesses that are trying to figure out culture. That's one of the things that you hear about all the time, and that's one of the very first things that football teams either have or don't have.
Laura, you talked about your coming out of Vanderbilt. You got a job in the oil business right away. You had a career. Then you had to manage a family. Tell me how athletics and being a part of a team and what you experienced at Vanderbilt helped prepare you for that, and how it influenced?
Just being able to get along with people and to rely on others to help you to do the part of the task.
Yeah, and there is something about being a student athlete when it comes to time management. You learn how to manage your time in college, don't you?
Yeah, I had a double major, and I had Spanish and business, and doing that, I think I had one free elective besides the normal requirements. So yeah, you just have to be disciplined, and I'm a very routine, scheduled person, and you know, to this day, working out at the Mark to me is, I hate to say this, it's like a part-time job. I mean, it isn't a job for me because I love it, but I come here and I'm here for 3 hours and then I leave, and it's just a part of my routine, and I don't let anything else break out of it. It has to be pretty special.
Well, that's a perfect segue to what I wanted to wrap up with here, and that is the importance of this place in your life now. And not because of it's your routine, but the return on the routine, the return on the investment, not only physically, but spiritually or mentally or from a community standpoint. What does it mean to you?
Well, it's a big part of my life, having lived in Houston for 42 years and then come here and not know many people beyond our local family. It became a home for me, and people that I got to see on a regular basis, and they reach out to you, and it's like a family here.
And for you, Brent, I mean, this obviously it's not the 49ers weight room, but it's pretty dang close.
It is. The facilities might be better here
Right.
than I am.
What does it mean to you to have this sense of community here, and how does it sort of fill that void in your life?
You know, it's great, Brian, to be able to get up and work out and be consistent. And I think as you get older, you know, it's so much easier to work out when you got paid for it. It's as I get older, I realize, man, it's great to show up every day and get an hour in. I mean, I'm not as tough as Lori. 3 hours, I'm like, holy cow, Lori, you gotta get on your program. You're not going to get me out in the pool, though.
That's right.
It's the best kept secret.
It probably is. I see everyone bouncing around out there. I'm like, yeah, they're burning calories doing something.
Yeah, you can move in ways in the water that you can't move on land.
That is very true. But it's, you know what, Brian, it's great because it's comfortable. You come in. I probably don't know 3/4 of the people's name, but you say hi to people, or you see the people that you've met. You know, Ryan, I've just known Ryan in the last probably 3 or 4 months, and it's great to see him. And hey, Ryan, what's up? You know, it's just nice. It's kind of like, I don't know, I guess it's like going to Cheers. And hey, Norm, hey, Sam, and you know, you work out and you kind of do your same thing every day, and it becomes, if I miss it, I don't feel as good. I feel like I'm missing something, and I know I'm off. I need that morning hour, no matter what it is I'm doing that day. And it's just nice, you know. You always see somebody that waves or laughs or you know, makes a comment, and it's part of the community.
The only thing with Ryan is whenever he stops you and he wants to know how you block down that 2 technique, right?
I'm telling you.
He's got to get a little football gear in there for you.
The first time I saw Ryan walking toward me, I was afraid. I didn't know what he was going to do. like I hope I didn't cut block him in another ride.
We wanted to leave some time for questions for you guys. If any of you have any questions of Laurie and her journey at Vanderbilt, or Brent and his journey, obviously through Santa Clara with the 49ers and in business. Anybody got any questions? And these guys are going to be happy to answer them. And then after it's all over with, Brent's going to be willing to show you his Super Bowl rings. How about that? Anybody got any questions? Shirley's got someone said something. Nothing about North Carolina soccer? Oh, we got one in the back. Oh, the BYU Cougars got a question. Okay.
What was your most devastating loss, and how did you get over it?
Ooh.
Have you ever gotten over it?
Does he know the answer before he asks?
I don't know if he does.
Okay, all right.
So my most devastating loss, we were playing the New York Giants at home in the NFC Championship game in 1991. We had won the 2 previous Super Bowls, and we were trying to win 3 in a row, which hadn't been done. It was in the 4th quarter. We were ahead by points or 1 point. And Joe Montana got hit by Leonard Marshall, and still one of the most brutal hits. Broke his wrist, tore up his arm, tore up his shoulder, and he's out of the game. And in comes Bob and Steve Young. Now it's muddy, it's brutal. The Giants, the Lawrence Taylor Giant defense was amongst the greatest ever. And Steve Young looks like a major deer in the headlights. He hadn't played much that season, and so now there's probably 4 minutes left in the game, and it's 2nd down and 25, and he calls the play, and we maybe get 5 or 6 yards, and so now it's 3rd and 19 or 20, and we're backed out. And we go up to the line. He calls his play 23 Texas, which our fullback Tom Rathman's going to run a little cut route over the middle, maybe get 7 or 8 yards. But if the Giants are in too deep, they have a chance to hit me down the seam for 30 yards. So I get up to the line of scrimmage, and I see it's going to be too deep coverage. Steve has no idea. He's like deer in the headlights. And I'm screaming at him, and the whole stadium's screaming, and I'm screaming at him, too deep, too deep. And Lawrence Taylor's yelling, hey, watch the tight end, and he's doing this or that. So I didn't know if he knew or not, so I ran the play. Steve throws a perfect pass down the middle, 30 yards. We're into Giants territory. There's 3 minutes left. And I threw the ball down, and I looked at Lawrence Taylor, and I said, LT, I'm going back to the Super Bowl. The next play, our running back fumbled. And the Giants recovered, drove down 30 yards, and with no time left, kicked the field goal. It was brutal, and you can tell it still bothers me. But I had been telling my little girls that we're going to Disney World if Daddy wins. And I came home from the game, and they said, Daddy, are we going to Disney World? And I said, no. And you can ask Roger Craig why we're not going. And Roger's a great guy. He is a heck of a running back, but you just, whatewe can't fumble at that point. And so all we needed to do was just follow the ball practically. And so that 3 in a row, and a lot of things happened after that. Joe was hurt and eventually got traded, and some of the older guys ended up leaving the team, and it was a tough. We lost to the Cowboys the next couple of years in the NFC Championship until we came back and beat them in '94. But that one I'll never ever forget.
Was that Phil Simms?
So Simms had gotten hurt, and Jeff Hostetler came in, and because he could run, he actually got them in field goal position. I don't know if Simms would have been able to run that well.
And the reason I bring that up is later on, Brent and Phil worked together at CBS. I failed to mention that, 12 or so years?
Oh, actually, I was there 7. Just 7
only
years.
7? Yeah, I'll give you credit for 12.
I'll take it.
For their attention. Yeah, exactly. Yes, ma'am.
So I wanted to ask Lori, if you work out for 3 hours a day, like how do you keep it fresh? Do you do different stuff all the time, or how do you interest yourself to go and stay that long every day?
Well, I do different things. I either ride the bike, or do the elliptical kind of for an hour, and then I lift weights, and then I go into the pool. And I do that Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, weather permitting, I'll run 5 miles and then come here and do the pool work on my own for an hour, and sometimes with my good friend Ann. I also keep track of what I'm doing in an Excel spreadsheet. I have not bought a Fitbit or anything. I don't feel like I need to do that. So I'm always wanting to run more miles and, keep my time down. And so I have my own personal challenges.
Netflix and the Food Network.
I have a question for Lori. Do you still like to spit?
Yes, I do still spend.
Hope you don't spit in the pool.
Not in the pool, but when I'm running, yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Brent, did you make note? 5 miles on Tuesday, Thursday.
And Saturday.
And Saturday. Just make note of that. Add that to your list.
Man,
Yeah.
I'd be skinny.
We have a question over there, Ryan? Yes, sir.
Yeah, so, Brent, I know that sad story hurt you a little bit. Could you tell us about like your favorite moment as a Niner?
So there were so many great moments, and some of them are really off the field, you know, joking around with guys. But to grow up as a young guy like yourself and to see what it's like in a winning locker room of the Super Bowl, and to experience that in Super Bowl 24, we were playing the Broncos, and I caught a touchdown. And to imagine being a young kid watching those games on TV, and then all of a sudden you're there and you're in the end zone and you've caught that touchdown and you're playing the Super Bowl and you just know what that feeling's like. I had so many better catches and so many exciting times, but there's nothing that can compare to actually catching one like that in the biggest game.
By the way, you know that's a tight end.
I know it is. That's why I'm expecting big things.
Yeah, exactly. Anybody else? Yes, sir, in the back.
A question for Laurie. In the first years at Vanderbilt, without facilities or trainers, what did you do when you or one of the other women got hurt?
We didn't have anybody get hurt except for one gal broke her arm, and you know she had to work around that. But that was it. We didn't get injured, and I'm fortunate to say I have not had sports injuries. I think from doing a variety of sports, and then also cross training with the water, you know, teasing your muscles. Okay, now I'm doing this. Oh, now I'm doing that. I've been very fortunate to avoid injuries.
That's awesome. Anyone else? Any more questions?
I think Brent should share what he told me one time about what your father did, tossing the ball to you and your brother, and that you had to catch it 100 times in a row or you had to start over.
I did as a little kid before we go to bed. My dad wanted me to be a quarterback, and I was a quarterback until the time that I got on the team, and the head coach's son was the quarterback, and that was the end of my quarterback career.
Did you have a routine like that with your girls?
So we used to throw the ball and kick the ball all over the house. In fact, we still do. And so, and my grandkids are crazy. They're winging it and throwing it, and they'll be breaking stuff. And you know what? I always tell my mom after all these years, wasn't it worth it?
Yes.
And so there's nothing like playing ball in the house.
They're future dragons, right?
Absolutely.
I hear that. That's right. All right. Is that it? All right. Well, we got some refreshments in the back. We want you to stick around because, and if you want to see Brent's Super Bowl ring's going to do that. Vanessa, I think's coming up, and along with around, we got some special gifts here for our 2 guests here. We hope you enjoyed this. Did you know? And we hope to do it again with more members of the Mark here. Learn more about the membership and the interesting folks that are there. And now when you see Brent, you don't have to be scared to go up to him and say hello.
No, not at all. Exactly.
Whenever I presented this idea to Lori and Brent, I presented the idea and then I put them on the spot and said, will you two be the first ones to help launch this? And I thank you both so much for saying yes to that. So. I called Brian up and I said, Brian, I've only been there a little over 90 days. I don't know how many people are going to show up. I don't know what I can do, what I can't do. But will you help me launch this thing? And in the middle of his busy schedule, slammed with everything that he's doing, thank you for saying I'm in.
Well, and as I told Ryan, I said, I hate the Pro Bowl. And that's what's going on today, so I had time. That's sure, I'll be happy with it. So, and Brent agreed with me. He hates the Pro Bowl too.
Thank you all. One more round for our guests. Please take some time and give us some refreshments, visit, socialize. Thank you for coming.